And live Monday Night Football, Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants. Second, I mean, it's hard to keep a straight face watching some of this garbage that we have been treated to in primetime games. 6-3 for the Dallas Cowboys at the halftime. After the treat that we were given yesterday on Sunday Night Football, what a way to follow this up to put the cap on week number 3. This has been as weird and ugly of a game as we have seen all regular season in the primetime games. I mean, we've got a variety of just absolute slugfests in the worst way possible so far this year. This is just adding to the list. We're seeing numbers come out. We'll get to them in just a second, but it was interesting watching them bounce back and forth because some of the regulated books have them up before we go to half, whereas traditionally the bigger books post them right as the second quarter is complete. Everyone was kind of jockeying around the 19 and a half and the 20, which is where this total was. So it was bouncing back and forth, but the side has been pretty consistent. A few things caught my eye here in the first half. First and foremost, the Dallas Cowboys started the game with a very good, I thought, scripted drive that was negated by a holding penalty once they got past midfield. But it involved a lot of running between the tackles off either side of the center. And they were doing that because Leonard Williams, the best run stopper for the Giants, is not there in the middle of that defensive line. And he's just a massive difference maker when it comes to the Giants stopping the run. What then got interesting as the game got on, and it's hard to see as you're watching in real time, and I'll admit that not necessarily the most trained eye at spotting those sort of minute in-game adjustments, but we saw the Cowboys put Jason Peters in at the offensive line, making his first start for the team. And all of a sudden they started running off of his side on the left side of the line, and they went away from running in the middle. And what I thought going up the middle was doing well was opening up play action downfield for rush. Now, it doesn't help when you have CeeDee Lamb dropping 40-yard walk-in, potentially touchdown passes, but they had a really good thing going, and then they switched it, and they've looked very explosive in that regard. And so I don't know what we're going to see in the second half, if they keep running off of Peters on the left side of the line or if they go back to running up the middle. But either way, this Cowboys running game looks like it's working either way. The Giants aren't showing much ability to stop it, whether they're going off of Peters or whether they're taking it right in the middle. And what that's led to is the Cowboys having a lot of sustained drives, but we've seen either penalties or the drop pass by Lamb or the missed PI in the end zone really prevent the Cowboys from getting on the scoreboard. They're averaging more than 35 yards a drive. They're sustaining offense. But again, it's the refs really calling it one way in favor of the Giants so far. And it's not only in the calls that have been made, but also the calls that have been missed, which have stalled these Cowboys drives. You have the drop by Lamb, and then you have the stalled drive inside of the 10. So it's not like the Cowboys have been void of any chances. When I'm watching the Giants side, they had a really quick start to the game. They had a really effective first drive. They looked really, really good. And what they were doing well, from what I saw, was the Cowboys we know are going to be aggressive off of the edges. And they're going to have a lot of speed, and they're going to bring a lot of pressure because it's a Wink-led defense, and he loves to blitz. And what the Cowboys were trying to sort of do was generate all this pressure. I flipped up the DCs. I know someone's going to point it in the chat. But as I explained this thought, the Cowboys were generating a lot of pressure off the edge. But what Daboll was doing was counteracting that. A lot of screen plays. He had Jones rolling out. They were getting the tight end involved, and it looked like that was going to be problematic for the Cowboys to stop. And on that scripted drive, the Giants, again, as they usually do under a Daboll-led team, looked really good. But they haven't gone back to any of that. And now we're seeing the offensive line for the Giants, which has allowed more pressures than any other offensive line in football through 3 weeks, really struggle to hold up against this Cowboys pass rush. And the majority of the big plays for the Giants offense have come from Daniel Jones targeting Saquon Barkley. Only 2 guys on the Giants roster have run more routes this game than Saquon Barkley out of the backfield. But the Cowboys are sitting on that pretty effectively too. And outside of the big screen on 3rd and 25, they've really been able to contain that side of the game too. And so when I'm putting this all together in my mind, it's a Giants offense that I see in a bit of a tough situation. They're not finding a lot of success with anything. The offensive line, which is the weakness, struggling against the D line. That looks like a big mismatch to me. And on the other side, it's a Cowboys offense. I think Rush, despite his completion rate, which looks a little bit worse than it is because of the drops, has been really decisive. The run game that Dallas wants to utilize is working very well off the side that Peters is playing, but also I think they get back to running it in the middle. To me, there's just a lot more to back here with Dallas, who's been a little bit unfortunate with how things have played out through penalties, drops, and everything as they get close. And so I'll go Dallas on the side, and they'll be getting a half point. A lot of places will be a pick 'em. We'll pull up FanDuel, which is split right down the middle. Dallas plus 0.5 minus 128, effectively getting the tie in your pocket, taking that half point. There are other places. I'm looking at the odds screen now where you're getting it minus 110 or minus 115. So we'll go Dallas second half plus the half point. I think there's a lot more there. We'll see if we can go to player props specifically. I want to focus in on Tony Pollard, and it's got to be, if there's Cowboys fans watching this, you have to be just sitting on the couch angry with everything you're seeing as they continue to target Zeke and get him involved more when you see this burst and explosiveness that Pollard has out of the backfield. Right now, he's at 71 rushing yards for the game. He's looking at 18 and a half, adjusted for the second half for his rushing prop. But I'm actually more intrigued by his receiving yard total. I'm making producer Mick here behind the scenes work. And the reason I say that is, again, the thought I was trying to go before I jumbled it was Wink is just blitzing is what he does. The Cowboys have attempted one screen pass all game, and it was on a 2nd and 10. I thought it was pretty predictable. And you're watching the game, you know one of those is coming. And so if you want to take a shot on that specific play, I think it's very likely set up for Tony Pollard. I feel nowhere close to as confident in this as I do the side or the Russell Wilson prop from yesterday. But if you want something else for the second half and you want to watch for that specifically, especially if the Cowboys are able to extend this lead a little bit more, the Giants' pressure and their blitz rate is going to increase. We know that's going to happen. And that's really when the opportunity is going to come. So you're looking at an 8-yard reception sometime in the second half for Pollard off of a screen. Very likely probably going to happen to Rush's right side. That's where you're going to see it. So if you want to bet on that specific play and watch that, I think that's an interesting angle based on what the Giants have done defensively in the first half and how that would sort of accelerate in the second. But I do hear, as difficult as these halftime shows have been, as forced as a lot of the bets have been for the sake of the show, this is actually one I feel quite good about backing Dallas here, plus the half point. I think they were the much better team and will continue to be as we go into the second half. So that'll do it for me for Halftime Live. We'll be back with you Thursday Night Football. Hopefully Miami makes it. That team was on the field for a very long time. It's an interesting matchup as opposed to angles, but that'll be a fun one on Thursday Night Football.